Liebe GFM-Mitglieder, sehr geehrte Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer des Webinars, Conversational Commerce ist das Thema unserer heutigen Session. Und einige Experten sehen das schon als die nächste Stufe des E-Commerces, weil mit Conversational Commerce kann ein Anbieter eine Unterhaltung mit Kundinnen und Kunden bei individuellen Fragen gezielt auf die individuellen Bedürfnisse eingehen. Und darum reden wir, glaube ich, heute zu Recht von Next Generation Customer Relationship. Und es freut mich sehr, dass wir zwei Experten bei uns haben, Professor Christian Hildebrand von der Uni St. Gallen und Paul Wiedmeier von Facebook Schweiz. Und die beiden Herren werden heute auf Englisch sprechen. Und Christian, it's a pleasure to have you here. Go for it. I'm most excited to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Jean-Marc. So I think I speak also for Paul. I think we're equally excited to speak to everyone today. So even if we can't see you, again, some digital voyeurism. Yeah, we're both very excited to be here. And before we start, I'd like to do a very short experiment with everyone. I hope that the chat function is working as it should. But when we speak about voice technologies and the development toward conversational commerce, I would like us to make a short step back and just listen to 4 short sounds. And the idea here is to think as quickly as possible about the association that you're making. Can you think about the brand that might be represented in the sound that you're listening to? Sometimes there's also a product that you're listening to. So listen to the sounds and as quickly as possible, write your answer in the chat console. So let's see who's able to get it as quickly as possible. So here's the first sound. Okay, very good. Nicole, you were exceptionally fast. Raphael as well. Tobias, you were close, but you missed it. So the right answer here is Bacardi. Now, second one, still medium level of difficulty. Let's see who gets it as quickly as possible. Okay, pause here for a sec. Nicole, wow, you're crushing it. You're very fast. You got it right away. Jean-Marc as well. So it's Jaws. Next one. Now we ramp up the difficulty a little bit. So let's see who gets the next one here. I'll play this one more time. I'm curious to see if anyone recognizes what this is. I'm monitoring your thoughts and ideas here. Yes, so who is it? Let me see. I can't really read it, but it is Netflix. It's not Microsoft, so I can't really see the names. Unfortunately, are cut out at the moment. Okay, now a difficult one, and I'm very excited to see whether anyone gets it. It's a relatively new sonic branding, and yeah, let's see who can recognize it. Okay, play this one more time. So far, nobody writes something in the chat console. Does anyone know? Sounds like Telecom. Thank you, Axel. No, it's not. So it's Colgate. It's a really interesting case, but when you think about the sound here of Colgate, they did a major repositioning of the brand and also major repositioning in the way how the brand sounds. So we speak of this as sonic branding. So when you think about what's happening here and why you're so good at recognizing these different brands and also products, it's because recognizing these sounds is essentially a multisensory experience here for us, and something where we see we're more and more moving towards what we see as sonic branding. We see more and more of these voice technologies. And some of the reason is because sound is a really complex psychological meaning. And you were very quick recognizing the white shark, not so quick with the Colgate case. But I think we can all agree that it's very fast in eliciting also a specific emotion that you might be connecting with it. So for example, even if you don't know Colgate, it is a more positive sounding experience. It's not as sad and maybe fearful and anxious compared to the white shark sound that you listen to. So, and also when we think about sounds more for what can they convey specifically in terms of an identity, for instance, it is, when you think about sonic branding, it's clearly something that has been used over the past years, if not more than a decade, to help also with the positioning of products and brands. So Skype, for example, is a really interesting case where not just the ringtone, for instance, but everything that you did in the software. I mean, we all switched to other programs in the meantime, Zoom and Microsoft Teams, but still Skype Business versus the non-professional version were also designed at the sound level to really convey, okay, this is the professional version and this is the non-professional version. And it's also connected to the way how we process information in our brain. Also memory, for example, is very closely connected with our vision and also to our auditory system. So when you open up a can of Coca-Cola, it has a specific sound. Or when you think about closing a door of a premium car brand, it has a certain sound that elicits, and it's the way how it should be designed, elicit a certain level of trust that you're attributing to the brand and also to the product. So why do we see these shifts at the moment? Why is all this happening now? So what is clearly happening is that the younger generation, they care more about the experience that they have, often compared to just having some product that is just replaceable with a lot of the other brands. It's also clear that the way we are communicating helps us to create a connection. So if you communicate in a way that is more affectionate, or if I express a certain level of excitement, I can create a completely different kind of connection as opposed to just writing something to you. So what is also happening is at the same time, a major technology shift over the past roughly 10 years, that we have conversational interfaces, if they come in the form of written text, as you see here in the Starbucks barista, but we also see it in how sophisticated also voice technology has become. Does anyone know the service by Google? They introduced this roughly two to 3 years ago. It's called Google Duplex. Does anyone know this? If you write briefly in the chat so that I know whether everyone listened to this or not in the past. Does anyone know the case? Okay, so I give you a short excerpt, just the first few seconds. Picture yourself on the other side when you're receiving this call, and think about whether you would be able to tell apart whether this is a machine that's talking to you or whether this is a human talking to you. So to give you a short context, so it's a personal assistant that could make a booking, for instance, for you. And what we're listening to is a voice assistant that's trying to make a booking for getting a haircut. Okay, unfortunately, we have the same issue that we had before, so I can share this example later with you. It's not loading for whatever strange reason it was before. Anyway, I think even if you're not listening to this example here, I think what we all agree on is probably that the technology has made major shifts upward in the way how good it is at recognizing, for example, the commands that we're issuing to a voice interface. If it's a Google Home at home, or the Alexa in your home, or if you're talking to a navigation system, hands-free while you're steering the car. It's also clearly a mindset shift in companies that we see, that you're going more toward, let's have a conversation with our customers, as opposed to we're trying to shout out whatever kind of message we want to get across. Language is our human API. So again, it makes the point of we're creating a connection to other people when we're speaking. And it's also almost a magical experience. And I'm curious to understand, why is it creating this magical experience? What are the first things that come to your mind when you think about the way voice technology works today, and why more and more people are adopting it, and also why maybe also some of you are interested in joining our session today? Why is this really a major mindset shift that's happening here, and why is it so powerful at the moment? Any quick ideas? If you would write something in the chat console, we get our brains going a little bit. More personal? Yeah, thank you. I can see who's posting this. Tobias, yes, it's also more authentic. So you're all on spot here with what's happening. So it's also something that objectively, it's faster. It's faster, it's richer in what it can communicate. So that's also making the point of it's somehow more authentic. So it's easier to judge whether someone, for example, is lying when you're listening to the person, as opposed to you're receiving a message, hey, I'm sorry, I can't come. But if your friend is giving you a call and there is some hesitation, for instance, or you can sense very quickly the kind of emotion that the person is expressing. So it's faster, it's richer, and it's also more personal, as Jean-Marc was saying here in the chat. So in terms of pace, we see that also when we look at the current data, for instance, and that's just a case here from Virgin Trains. When they switched from the booking system of booking a ticket on the mobile app to a voice interface that's connected to Alexa, they went down from 7 minutes in the previous mobile booking system to just 2 minutes if you're doing this with a voice interface. We also see this is an interview I can also share with you that's really interesting when you think about the different segments that might be interested in testing out your voice technology. So here that's Jan Neumann. He's head of AI at Comcast. And Comcast is the relative to Swisscom for us here in Switzerland. And what they developed a few years ago was a voice-based remote control. So what's happening is you just take the voice control and you're saying, I want to see a movie with Brad Pitt, and then you're getting a couple of recommendations here. So what is happening here for Comcast was they realized, wow, that is not just a tool to select different movies or series, that's also a tool to build loyalty, because people get hooked up with the technology. And it's also happening that people that are very old and have issues reading, they now have a completely different interface to use the technology. And the same also at the other end of the age distribution, that they saw more and more kids are nagging their parents that they want to keep Comcast because they can right away speak to their television and ask for the next Disney movie, for instance. So it's really interesting also as a loyalty tool that you're developing here. So you're building a connection and you keep people hooked up with the system. But what we also see is it's harder to manage for brands. So, and that is really across the board. It doesn't matter if this is now here in the food and beverage context. If you look, for example, cheap insurance or what kind of insurance, car insurance, Switzerland, the premium brands have a really tough time at the moment. So when I'm searching, for example, and these are the actual results that I get when I'm searching for best iced coffee in Switzerland or a Starbucks cafe latte alternatives, if I'm Emmy, I would be a little bit concerned that Emmy is not popping up at the top result. But Miko is apparently doing a really good job here. So what is happening here with this more fundamental shift toward conversational commerce? So what we can clearly see, and Paul is also sharing a lot of really interesting insights here, is people become not only more comfortable, but almost demanding. They almost demand that I want to have a quicker and faster interaction, if it's customer service or if it's even having a shopping context. And we see also when it comes to shopping that people become more and more comfortable. So you're more comfortable to just add products to your shopping basket that are not the classic products where you think, okay, I'm adding toilet paper to my shopping basket. People are also comfortable doing this more with experience goods. When you think about groceries, when you think about clothes, or other things that require a bit more nuance of understanding, people are comfortable doing this at the moment. What is also happening is we started to look at whether we can also use it for sales automation. That's just an example from our research where we're interested in how good can a bot really sell something. And there are different conditions here as part of an experiment where you had the traditional web interface of the company and different bot interfaces that we were testing that either had no gender at all, or you were communicating with the opposite gender, or with a bot that had exactly the same gender as you. And the context was a car rental setting, where at the end, what happens often on the website is you're receiving this option, hey, we could take over the refuel service for you. You just have to pay a little charge. And the question is, how good is it to sell these upgrades as part of the booking process? So what we see here on the y-axis is the decision to choose this upgrade, so to get the refill option. And what we see on the x-axis are the different conditions that we tested in the experiment. So the standard booking interface of the firm, and also different implementations of a chatbot. So what is interesting is it doesn't really matter what kind of bot you're taking. The bot was always outperforming the traditional website. There was a little shift upward if it had exactly the same gender. There are also some psychological reasons why this is probably more effective. But on balance, when you look across the different bot implementations, they were always better compared to the standard website. Here's an interesting, and allow me if I say almost a frightening case. So that's from a colleague of mine who ran a gigantic experiment in China And you can also read up the paper. I can send this to you if you're interested in. And what they did was in a financial context. So they were testing how good are robocallers to sell insurances. So, and the Chinese voice bot was so good that it also mimicked the local dialects of people. So, and what you see here in the first two groups are the underdogs, so the not so well performing human salespeople, the very experienced salespeople, so the proficient sales agents of the company. And here are different bot implementations that you see in a second. Either the voice bot saying nothing, that it's actually an AI that's talking to you and trying to sell you something. Or before you're receiving the call, you have some information, okay, now we have some automated technology that is walking you through a contract proposal that we have for you. Or just releasing that information after the conversation. So here's what happened. So obviously the human experienced ones are always better than the underdogs. That's what you would expect. What is the frightening case here is that the very well-trained voice bot that was trained on the local dialects was as good as the top salespeople in the company. And this was a really large-scale experiment. We're not talking here about a few hundred people participating in the study. But when people know that they're talking to a robocaller and a voice bot, they're quite concerned. And also you see that the purchase rates are going down. But at least they're not worse compared to the worst salespeople you have in the company. So on balance, when you think about optimizing the sales force, you can clearly see that if you have a really good designed voice bot, it is as powerful as the best salespeople that you have in the company. What we also see is that the nature of data collection is changing at the moment. So here's some work that we are doing, trying to figure out how does market research change when we have new interfaces. So here, for example, was a case where we tested different web surveys compared to a chatbot that is walking you through your restaurant experiences, would you recommend the company to your friends, and so on and so forth. So, and what is interesting is that we see really fundamental changes of how people perceive the interaction, and also what changes objectively how they respond. So in terms of the subjective experience, people experience this as much faster. So it feels quicker when you have a chatbot walking you through. And we also see that people have much more fun doing this, as opposed to going through a very long market research study. So, and what's also happening is they write substantially less and they're done faster. So that is something, so objectively, that's also something that's happening. So it feels faster, but it's also actually faster. But here's the interesting thing. So even though they're writing less and they're done quicker with the study, the data that they're providing is as reliable if we predict outcomes like NPS scores, if they would recommend the product, how much they would be willing to pay for certain premium products that we're trying to sell them. So chatbots are really changing also the nature of how we could conduct market research, for instance. Here's just a short case, and I cut here just in the interest of time if you have these more detailed analyses. But what we are also seeing is it's super critical how the design of the interaction is conducted. And there has been a lot of buzz in the media that voice shopping is not something that people like, and people become a little bit frustrated. But it depends on how you're orchestrating the interaction. So some people, for example, say, Alexa, length of marathon, or some people use a more natural form, Alexa, can you tell me the length of a marathon? What we see is people learn the way to use a certain technology and apply that to other technologies. So that's the way how you learn the upper part here, the length of marathon. That's the way how you learn to use Google. And many people simply transform how they learn to use Google to a voice interface. The question is, could this have any implications for example, how we need to design a voice bot, for instance? So what we see is people are more leaning toward using commands because it's faster for them, it saves time, it's straight to the point, avoids misunderstanding. But at the same time, those people that are using requests and talk more naturally, they experience this as if they would be talking to a human. But the important point here is it dramatically varies. If you have older customers, they actually like to use more requests. So they have a tendency to use more natural language when they're speaking to voice bots. And the younger generation is so used to get quick responses that you have more this googly way of using bot interfaces. But it has an impact on the way how the technology is creating a certain naturalness of the interaction. So it's better if you use requests as opposed to commands. And it also has downstream consequences that people are more willing, for example, to follow the recommendation that you're giving them if you have a request as opposed to a command. So I'm almost done with it. Let me highlight one or two quick points here. Experiment, experiment, experiment. All these technologies are very quickly evolving. And I think a good idea is just to try to experiment and see where can it really solve a problem for my customers. Focus more on the problem that you want to solve, not so much on the technology. Also think, what can you do more with the data that's generated? Can I use the words, for example, that people are writing and build, for example, a prediction model, whatever kind of problems they have with the service is right away going over to product management, for instance. So think also about the workflow, how you're using the data here that is generated. So without further ado, let me close with a short quote from Steve Jobs when he was saying, you have to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology and not the other way around. And with that, and without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Paul right now.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Christian. It was really fascinating, some of the researches. So I'm just wondering, I'm happy to, of course, jump into my part of the presentation. Christian focused a little bit more on voice assistants, and the other part of conversational commerce is indeed chatbots and chats. But I wanted to just check in with all of you if you had some comments, questions that you would love to, get answered immediately. Otherwise, you can just, as Jean-Marc said at the beginning, just use the chat function. We're super happy, Christian and myself, really to answer the questions either now or towards the end. So as I don't see immediate questions, again, feel free to ask in the chat and I'll just jump into my part of the presentation then. So we talked about how really conversational commerce is the next gen of customer relationship building in many ways. And today I would like to really show to you how powerful it is to become a conversational business. For all of these aspects that Christian already mentioned, I really liked his analogy using this human API. So indeed, it's a way more human way to connect with a business, and that's why it's really booming today, booming a lot, specifically in Asia, but as well in this part of the world, in Europe, and it definitely will help you to make your business more future-proof. So I'd like to introduce myself, or Jean-Marc did that already. I'm a client partner responsible at Facebook, responsible for our client partnerships here directly in Switzerland. Super happy if you have questions afterwards. Use my email address, paul@facebook.com, if you would like to reach out and chat as well afterwards. So what would I like to cover today in the remaining time? First, there's really a huge shift in how consumers really and people want to communicate with businesses. A lot of it already Christian shared, and I'll share a bit more data on that one. And second one, really, how do you make conversational commerce happen? And I would like to share a few use cases, specific cases that were developed with our partners within the Facebook ecosystem that are real proof points of that is actually working and solving for specific business challenges that you have. So what is the seismic shift? First, according to some studies we ran or commissioned, still a huge majority, so only 20% of the people surveyed are actually happy in the way they communicate with businesses. That means the large majority, 80%, is frustrated, and frustrated is a quite strong emotion. So not so good for any type of business. And why is it? They just feel that traditional methods of communication, being it phone, being it person or email, can be often frustrating. And the biggest reason for it is they consider it often a waste of time. It's interesting what Christian said, how often it is considered more fun and faster to communicate with a chatbot. And probably that's one of the reasons, because it's as well time saving when you communicate with a business is such an important trigger for people to feel satisfied with the experience. And I think we've all know it and we've all experienced it. On the phone, when you talk, often you have to go through really long hold times, you wait forever, or you feel you wait sometimes forever to get someone on the call. When the call drops off and you waited for 20 minutes and talk to someone, it's lost. You cannot really talk back to the same agent. So that's frustrating. Emails, we know a slow response time. In personal and web chats, often you have the issue that the session expires, and how do you keep that connection that you just opened on the browser? And actually, if you ask, and I think it's really simple, and Christian talked about this as well, is if you really ask how people want to communicate, the large majority, so 75%, will tell you, well, I would love to talk to a business in the same way I talk to my friends, because that's what I'm used to. That's the most convenient, the most natural way. And for many, this is really communications through messenger apps, through the different ones that you're using. And indeed, here as well, when you ask, and on a survey we ran again and commissioned here across a couple of countries, so really big group. If you look at it, this is more than 40,000 people that were asked here. 2/3 of them prefer actually messaging as the best way to communicate with a business, because it's fast, it's convenient, it's easy, and for the many reasons. And then as well, if you think of it, the beauty, just like in personal relationships, actually messaging apps and messaging with a business is a great way to establish a real relationship, because you just established a direct line. You can message someone, you can follow up, you can initiate a conversation, just like you do it with your friends and family, or whoever, all of your contacts that you have on your chat and messenger apps. So that's a big reason actually as well that helps often businesses and brands to build a relationship, build their brands, and build their business through conversational commerce. And here the last stat to share, or one of the last ones, on more of the insights and consumer insights. Interesting as well to find out, or to ask, what is the main use case, or when or what reasons do people communicate via Messenger or messaging apps with businesses? And it's really along the full customer journey. If you look here, large majority is interested to find out and research more about a specific product, to get service questions asked, to get support, but as well to make really a purchase and a reservation. So really this goes through the entire purchase funnel. And that's where as well many of these tools can help you as a business become a conversational business and solve for the different objectives you have across the funnel. And that's where I'd like to jump in now. Conversational commerce way, it is the next gen of customer relationship building. So maybe first, we talked about conversational commerce, how easy way to define it. And one proposal we use here at Facebook and the Facebook family of apps is really when a business communicates through chat with its customers, being it for knowing more about a product, purchasing it, or for the aftercare, we talk about conversational commerce. And why is that interesting, and why are consumers more and more using that function and this way of communicating? Because in many ways, it really creates the best of both worlds. What is great about retail stores is ultimately to get in a retail store that personalized advice, that personalized experience when you want to find out more, get advice on something, and get some guidance around products. The thing that is less convenient is it takes a lot of time. Often you only can access the products that are in a store, not a wider range, etc. Online gives you, in a way, quite the opposite. You can shop always on. You have all of the choices of the total product catalog and assortment available, but you lack that personalized experience and ask something that is beyond the website. And really, conversational commerce combines both worlds in a perfect way without the disadvantages that you have there. And just now switching a little bit more, how Facebook and the Facebook family of apps can really help you as a business and a brand to leverage all of these trends and consumer trends is, one, we really see a huge increase in business messaging on our platforms. Just a number that we can share publicly, it's last year, it grew more than 40%. The volume of daily conversations between people and businesses. So you see it has a huge traction. And then as well, our Facebook family of apps, Messenger is one. You can as well message directly on Instagram, and of course WhatsApp as the world's leading messaging app. Offer you really many ways to communicate with your customers. There's as well a vision at Facebook to soon enable to combine and have synergies across these three. So there's more product news to come in the future on this one. But I'd like to highlight a little bit how it can really work and give you in the next few minutes some examples how brands and businesses used it. So on the one side, if you have a Facebook, Instagram profile, and here's organic, we're not talking yet about paid campaigns or advertising campaigns, you can just see as here learn more in this messaging icon. So people can just, when they visit your Facebook or Instagram page, message you directly. And that's one entry point to start a conversation or answer customer care type of requests for you as a business. The second way is really to use more of the advertising products that Facebook is offering. For example, you can run a stories ad, or in the feed ads that then click to a messenger, either in our messenger experience or click to WhatsApp. And I'll talk a little bit about the two differences here, but really quite a simple way. Either organically people contact you proactively through this messenger WhatsApp integration on your page, or through advertising stories or in the feed, you initiate a conversation. The two things, or the one thing that's important for you as a business, is just connect it through an API, because as a business, if you connect your business through an API, you just have way more features. I won't go in all of the details, but maybe the one key difference between Messenger experience and WhatsApp experience is that on Messenger, once someone clicks on the ad, you can guide him into a chatbot experience in Messenger, and in Messenger, you have way more liberties to showcase your products, to show visuals about it, etc. Because just the entry and the way users use Facebook and Messenger is much more for discovery. So that's an environment where users actually are quite happy to get a bit more of these promotional discovery type of messages. On WhatsApp is a bit different. We know most people don't like to be contacted out of the blue, because how would someone get your email or your phone number, sorry, in your WhatsApp contact? So here's more of an established relationship that you already have with a customer. And then if someone contacts you, you can ask customer care questions, any queries, or through the feature of notifications, give detailed updates. For example, if someone ordered a product with you, on when the delivery is scheduled for, or if the flight is delayed, etc. So quite restricted away from a business, just because for us it's so important to keep the user experience good, so that people feel there's an added value of connecting with a business and that they don't feel overwhelmed with promotional messages. And of course, there's as well on WhatsApp plans to potentially in the future include payments. There's in other countries already tests on that. So now maybe the most interesting part, or how can all of this be real? I'd love to show you some use cases along the consumer journey. So really the beauty about conversational commerce, it can not only be used maybe as the word suggests in the purchase phase, but really to help people discover your products, your brand, know more about it, answer inquiries, so in the consideration phase, really help to seal the deal and make a purchase, but as well in after sales service and care. And here I have some examples. I have one Swiss example towards the end, but as well a few examples from Europe and around the world that I just think are quite interesting and show as well the wide range of industries where it is used. So one example from Germany, Maggi Koch Studio. So here really a WhatsApp bot helped its consumers and potential consumers to learn cooking, to learn about recipes. All of this is done on consent. So it's really the consumer, or the person who talks to, has to first be interested to communicate with Maggie, and then as well accept basically that this conversation is shared then with the brand, and then through a chatbot experience, as you can see here on the screen. Are you okay that this data is so data consent is very important? Yes, I'm okay with it. And then would you like to know more about the recipes? And then you can get this personalized experience. What type of recipes? Is it basic, advanced, etc.? And interesting in this results, not only the volume of messages, but specifically how it helped Maggi Kochstudie to raise brand awareness. So an interesting way in the upper funnel. Second one, maybe as well, Hyundai, this case is from Brazil. They really used WhatsApp to tell people more about a new car launch that they launched in Brazil, reached millions of people with this, had a lot of conversations, and ultimately moved the conversation from I'm just aware of this new product to really engaging through automated way, but one-to-one with people to answer their questions about the new model. And a third case in the discovery phase that I find quite interesting, Carrefour in France used WhatsApp to ultimately digitalize their flyers. Print is very outdated. Who still reads the print flyers that you get in your mailbox? So really interesting way was here. First, people registered on the Carrefour app, consented that actually if they leave their phone number, Carrefour can contact them through WhatsApp. And then they consented, yes, I want to learn more. I want to receive these catalogs. So once that consent is done, as well, a business is allowed to communicate and to share this product catalogs information. Interesting stat here, more than 3 minutes on average were used, and almost half of the people who received this catalog on WhatsApp really opened it and looked at it. So a really cheap, engaging way for retailers to digitalize print flyers and save trees. If we move to the inquiry stage, an example from Vodafone here. This is more in the care point of view here, a question. This is Vodafone Germany. I would like to ask when my new smartphone is arriving, the smartphone that they ordered. So nice way as well on a one-to-one communication. Customer asked you something. So again, it's not proactive communication here, but it's customer care communication. And Vodafone was here able to have more satisfied customers to reduce the volume on the more expensive phone channel and really solve a large majority of the queries here. So I think it's quite a good example as well that illustrates what a great customer care channel WhatsApp and Messenger can be. Moving to the next stage, purchase. So here again, different industry. We talk about beauty products, CPG products with Kiehl's. Kiehl's here, an example in Vietnam, and probably Asia is the most advanced region when it comes to conversational commerce. It's not the future or innovation, it's kind of the new norm. And many businesses sell through these ways. So if I play the video, you will see this is the Messenger experience. Again, as I mentioned here, you have way more opportunities to showcase different products through carousel formats and really link them on a website to close the purchase. You can see here, for example, the skills. Someone clicks on this ad, send a message. Yes, I'm interested to learn more about products. Here, the carousel format shows the different products someone is interested. And then a chatbot could either, when you click on it, give more information about the product and at some point link out on the website where you can close the purchase. So for Kiehl's, it really helped to drive the ROAS and increase sales by 22% versus not advertising. And then an example I promised as well, Switzerland. So Swisscom really used it as a care channel, Messenger in this case, and specifically communicating in a crisis. So they had an outage quite a while ago where just the network was not working for a while. So there was a huge increase in negative requests that they received, inquiries that they received. And actually through using Messenger, partnering as well with Chorus Care, that's a third-party provider, they were able to turn almost half of the dialogues from negative to positive. So actually use this crisis to build relationship and help their customers get information and understanding what's happening and resolve the issue. But as well, they managed to keep the SLA scores of getting a response, that every customer who reaches out gets a response in minimum 2 hours. They managed this. Also, there was a huge increase of more than 60% in volumes during that time. So again, an interesting care example from Switzerland. Found interesting 2 more to share before I wrap up and leave the floor for questions. One more that I found interesting, Samsung here uses basically WhatsApp for Business for people to register their products and their warranty. When you buy a product, you can then contact the warranty bot of Samsung, register your product, and that way the warranty is there. And when you later have issues with the product, you can contact Samsung directly through the line. So really a useful case here. And Air France automate, and a lot of airlines are quite active in this space as well. They really managed through this channel, and that's again Messenger, not WhatsApp, to increase the net promoter score significantly through a chatbot experience that just answered the most standard ways when people wanted to communicate. So is it about understanding, for example, get more information about the booking, about the flight status, about your account, about how many miles you have collected, etc., etc. So instead of going to a website and searching through this information, actually a lot of consumers were really interested through this chatbot to get the most asked questions answered through here. So I think you can see how native this feels and how easy it is for many consumers. I shared a lot of examples, and probably one question is, it looks great, but it's quite complicated to develop a chatbot. Christian as well said at the beginning, design matters. And you know, there's a huge ecosystem that developed, and here you can see a lot of third-party providers that are not linked to Facebook, but they understand our technology, that they can help you either to set up the API, manage customer care messages for you in a very efficient way through couple channels. So not only Facebook channels, but email and any other type of channels you would want to include, or they can build chatbots for you. So, you know, don't feel, if that's something you're considering for your business or your brand, don't feel overwhelmed with, you know, kind of the sophistication that you saw here. A lot of partners are really well equipped to do this. And I liked as well, and on this one I'll close, what Christian said. It's really not about doing, you know, the biggest project alive straight away, but really start small, iterate, test and learn. With all of these things, you get immediate results. You can track and track your objectives and get a good read on, as you could see in these examples, on how much the volume increased or decreased, how much costs you could save, how much purchases you could drive incrementally, all depending on your objective, and start small, test, and then scale from there. And partners can help you. And of course, we here at Facebook. So with this, just to conclude, I think we talked about the huge shift. Customers today massively prefer the messaging channel over a lot of traditional channels to connect with the business. That's the opportunity for you to become a conversational commerce business, and you can really use it across all 4 stages of the funnel. And with this, I'd like to thank you for joining in, listening in, and I'll stop sharing here and take the stage or leave the stage for questions.
Paul und Christian, vielen Dank, das war super spannend. Vielen Dank, dass ihr euer Wissen, eure Insights mit uns geteilt habt und uns Mut gemacht habt, die Conversational Commerce jetzt einfach mal, falls wir noch keine Erfahrung damit gemacht haben, mal loszulegen. Aus dem Publikum kommen keine Fragen. Ich bedanke mich aber natürlich auch für das Interesse unserer Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer und hoffentlich sehen wir uns bald wieder. Vielen Dank und habt noch einen schönen Tag. Tschüss.
Tschüss zusammen. Danke.
Danke euch.
Vielen Dank.
Tschüss zusammen.